Good afternoon, colleagues. A warm word of welcome from the Govan and Mbeki Mass Development Center. We have the second Geogebra Innovation Practice for 4IR webinar, call it GIP for 4IR. Allow me first of all to just welcome you all and thank you very much for the time that you have put aside to attend this webinar. I would like to just introduce from the Govan and Mbeki Mass Development side, myself, Werner Olivier. I'm the director, and we have also in our webinar a number of staff members. Karin Stein is here to assist as co-host, and Natalie Gil also with technical support in the background, Placid. We also have some of my colleagues as presenters, Arnold Guaze. He's all the way in Bedford at the moment, so we have even our own staff members dispersed across parts of the country as part of this live active webinar. And then we have also Dr. Phil Collett, who will present one of our applets today. Thanks, Phil, for agreeing to do that. As well as, one of our colleagues, Peter Weiswanger, will be taking care of a science demonstration of Geogebra Applets with phones this afternoon. This is a very exciting opportunity again, the second time. This is the second in a series of 4 such webinars that we plan this year from the Govan and Mbeki Mass Development Center side. And there are quite a number of things we try to achieve within a short period of an hour and a half. So I will just get going. I will kick off with the first session, and after that I will introduce some of the other colleagues that will be participating in the program this afternoon. I think you all can see the program on the screen. It was circulated earlier as well. I will take care of the first session, short session, not so short, the others are shorter. But then I will introduce Fatima Jakut from the Sakakamfa Foundation, who will give us a very interesting and exciting presentation on the 21st century pedagogies. And Phil after that, and then Arnold and Peter, and then we'll have a short closing session that will follow. So let me get into the first session. The first thing I would like to say that, these sessions are all about a new type of pedagogy that we want to promote in the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution, teaching strategies that integrate technology in a very innovative way, specifically as it relates to using phones over distance for teaching and learning. Let me just say something, because some of you in this webinar may be the first time that you really get exposed to Geogebra as a software, because our whole webinar will utilize the software Geogebra in a very special way to support teaching and learning. And there are different ways. We don't have enough time to go over all of it, but allow me one slide just to very briefly introduce the Geogebra software. It has been around as an open source software since 2008 and use by mathematics teachers and learners worldwide, and literally worldwide. And it's very well known in most countries of the world, except in South Africa. It's not very well known. I'm quite surprised. And it's probably time that we try to promote this, especially now that there's such a need for utilizing technology, especially over distance in our post-COVID period that we're moving into. There are different versions of the Geogebra application. That's not important. I've given the link there, and we will share my presentation in PDF format as well, so you'll be able to access some of these links afterwards. There is a very well-established global community of practice for more than 10 years already, particularly in the form of Geogebra Institutes. And we have a Geogebra Institute linked to our center at the Nelson Mandela University as well. And we're trying to really also revive the membership and the activities. So right at the end of today's webinar, I will just say something and invite anybody who would like to be part of that, because it's all about sharing, strengthening the teaching communities of practice, utilizing the software Geogebra as part of it. It provides resource platforms for online and offline, and that's the flexibility of this software across many operating systems. We don't even have time, and many device types are also possible, particularly phones, not only laptops and tablets, but also phones. And still we have the traditional classroom resources that are downloadable for offline use. So that's not what we're showing today, is sort of the latest and more recent developments, what is possible in utilizing this software for supporting the teaching and learning of particularly the CAPS curriculum for mathematics and physical sciences. So mathematics teaching support for interactive online GeoGebra applets is what the whole theme of this webinar series is all about. And let me just briefly say a few things before I take you to the first demonstration, which is really a warm-up exercise or an activity to show or demonstrate synchronous, in other words, where you can participate at the same time in accessing a GeoGebra applet after I've introduced some aspects of what we're trying to achieve through the use of these applets. Our online GeoGebra applets can be accessed anywhere, anytime. This is the fantastic flexibility it brings. It's open source, so it's very cost effective. And it can also be used synchronously or asynchronously. We'll be using it synchronously because you will be at the same time utilizing and interacting with the applet as I will share the facilitation via Zoom, and so will my colleagues do the same afterwards. And you can do it via mobile phones, tablets, or laptops. Particularly today, we'll focus on the use of this particular strategy using mobile phones. And also, it can be shared very easily via social media, via QR codes and active URL links to the actual applet, which is always going to be online in an HTML5 environment. We'll demonstrate all of this. The customized GeoGebra applets for mobile phones is what our center is really pushing and started working on intensely at the beginning of the year, because there has to be a special redesign for the phone screen, the size of the screen and all the activities and interactivities that one would like to integrate with the pedagogy of teaching and learning of mathematics or physical sciences. In particular, we have developed a series of applets for the CAPS curriculum for grade 12. We're busy with grade 11, and there will be a whole series for grade 10, 11, and 12 available before the end of the year. But for today, we will just show how these applets can be utilized to facilitate, problem solving at a higher level with some CAPS links in a creative way. So it is really very much suited for interactive and visual learner support over distance. Broad access for learners from under-resourced schools is particularly what the center, the Govan Mbeki Mass Development Center, is interested in, so it becomes very attractive in that context. And as I mentioned before, the open sourceness as well as the very, very low data usage of these applets makes it a very cost-effective, interactive platform for online learning and teaching. And in particular, we believe there's great value in this whole new approach and pedagogy that we're trying to promote in the post-COVID period, to address some of the challenges in education. So the aim of today's GIP 4IR webinar is to have activities to introduce key functions and affordances of online GeoGebra applets, and also to say something about the technical preparation. It's not difficult at all, but there's a sequence of things that one has to do before you can use this effectively via phones and to support, mathematics learning over distance. And particularly, we would like to showcase some GeoGebra applet pedagogies for synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning, as I mentioned before, and also to show or demonstrate how to share this with your learners via social media. I believe most of our participants are teachers or educational practitioners. So the idea is also to expose you and to support you to be able to interact with your learners over distance. Very briefly, this was shared in the previous webinar as well, but I'll just quickly, go through these two slides before I will go to the first applet demonstration that I will take care of. Remember, if you have a phone, you can then, in a few steps, synchronously work with me to access these GeoGebra applets online. You must have internet, and you can do it by just a little hyperlink, which you just touch on the screen of your phone, and you will have direct access to the applet. And there's one or two steps that you need to follow, and I'll demonstrate this with the first applet as well. that you always have to follow to get maximum interactivity and impact of utilizing these applets online. You can either access the applet via a active hyperlink or via a QR code. So we use these QR codes to also provide easy, flexible access via a phone, which can then through a scanner reader, just point towards the QR code and get direct access to the applet. And this makes it much more flexible even. Today, we would like you to actually point your QR reader of your phone to the screen, the QR code which will be showed on the screen. So that's the way that you can easily access it. We will also share, of course, these hyperlinks and QR codes with our documentation after the webinar. So this is a slide that briefly describes what to do. For those who with the webinar for the first time, we will have a QR code display on my screen, and you can just point your phone, and you will have direct access to the applet on the Geogebra platform, which you'll have to touch to make it active. You have to turn your phone horizontally to get maximum visualization, because these applets were all designed for the phone screen in landscape mode. And then very important, at the bottom right-hand corner of your phone will always be this little button, the Geogebra Applet screen button at the top, bottom right, which if you touch it, it puts it in slideshow mode, very much like a PowerPoint in presentation mode, and then you are ready to interact and to actually utilize the applet for various purposes for teaching and learning. So let me immediately go then and see if we can together, access the first applet, which really deals with the 4 problem-solving steps of George Polya. And I would like to facilitate that as the first applet. It's not a problem as such, but it's actually about how to solve mathematical and scientific problems. And I've created a Geogebra Applet that demonstrate that in a systematic way. It will give you the opportunity to also then on your phone interact with this applet and follow it as I facilitate this as well. This can be very, very useful and valuable for your learners to share this specific applet, which will give them a good strategy to try and do problem solving in a structured way with some specific method in place. So at this point, I would ask that you just engage with your phone, and if you have a QR scanner or QR reader, and for that purpose, Google Lens will work. Some cameras have a built-in scanner, but otherwise you'll have to install these free QR readers. If you have, you can just point it to the QR code on the screen that you see right now. And hopefully you'll be able then to access the applet that I'm also going to access, although in my case, I will just select the active link as displayed on the screen to access the Geogebra Applet for facilitation. So I'm going to do a new share, and you should see the applet, that is the Geogebra Applet, online at the moment. The next step is to drag down to the bottom part of your phone, where you will see this button on the screen, which is part of the applet. And you have to touch that to do it, put it in full screen mode. You may find that you can't drag down on your phone the picture in this area where the cursor is. You have to drag it from above across the bar to drag down to the applet to see the bottom part. And then you have to touch this particular button, sometimes more than once. It's sometimes very small on certain phone screens. I'm going to click it here, which is exactly the same. So if I do that, can you see that the screen now is in presentation mode? So my applet is now active and ready to be shared with anyone that is part of the Zoom session, or if you send this via social media to your learner, he can independently, anytime, anywhere, access this and do exactly the same and follow then the instructions that are on the screen in most cases. But in this case, this is just to get warmed up. We have these sliders. You will see there's always this particular icon, a slider icon, which means that you can drag it. You can with your finger on your screen, slide it to the right to go through the steps and to the left. So allow me then to facilitate a little bit about Polya's problem-solving plan. Something that I'm very much, surprised that more educators of mathematics and physical sciences do not know about it, because George Polya is very much a famous historic figure in many countries, and he made a huge contribution to maths education and many other areas of mathematics, as you can see on the screen, but in particular in the context of discovery learning and problem solving. And this is where I would like to just highlight his contribution. His very famous book, How to Solve It, from Princeton, I think it is Princeton in 1945, is still today very popular. And if you haven't read this book, please, I would recommend all mathematics, even physical science or science teachers for that, to read it, because he really was very practical and hugely influential in establishing very basic but I think very important methods for solving problems in general. He in particular had 4 basic principles for problem solving. That's mathematical problem solving, but it can even be broader than that. So I will facilitate it using this applet. And as I go along, I want you to, on your phone, you can actually slide this and go with me if you want to, just to get a feel of what we will come later on. And some of my colleagues will actually demonstrate problem solving of mathematical problems of great interest with some caps links using the same strategy with applets, and the cell phones that are then with the participant or the learner on the other side. So I'm sliding to the right, the second step. Now, the first step of problem solving is always very, very important, is to understand the problem first. So many people try to solve problems, mathematical problems, without really understanding the problem first. And there are lots of questions that you should ask yourself and try to get answers as part of this first step of problem solving. Some things may have to do with language. What are the unknowns and what are the conditions? Are the conditions sufficient, insufficient, redundant, or contradictory? Very important to draw up a diagram or a figure to establish a basis from which then to try to solve the problem. Introduction of suitable unknowns, variables, labeling, and notation, critically important. We don't have time. We can spend a whole hour or two on this, but I'm just going quickly through these just for the sake of showing how Geogebra Applets can even be utilized in this context. Clearly, there are a couple of things that one needs to make sure of before you even attempt to solve a problem. So understanding is very much the first and important step of the four-phase problem-solving strategy of Polya. In the second instance, when we're really trying to solve the problem, by the way, this is still part of what is called the modeling phase. So first, the understanding of the problem, plus then preparations are part of the modeling phase of problem solving. The other part, the other half, is actually the problem solving phase as such. So at this point in time, to design or to think of a method or a strategy or a plan to solve the problem has many different facets, and it depends on a specific problem and so on. So there are a few generic things that one can do, and the idea is not to go through them as an exhaustive list, but many questions again. Could you imagine a related problem? First, try to solve a simpler problem. What is given? How can I derive something useful? Does the data represent useful data in the context? Did I use all the conditions, for example? Can I think of a theorem, just thinking about the CAPS curriculum, or some result that can be useful to solve it, and many others. Also, very important to establish whether you can reformulate the problem symbolically. So that's just a few questions linked to the second part, where we're trying to prepare for the actual problem solving step. So it's part of the modeling phase. The actual problem solving phase is very much aligned with doing the actual plan which you have decided upon, and not to try different things just for the sake of it, but really carry out a specific plan and to check each step of the way for correctness is very important as part of the problems solving strategy, the third step in the strategy, and also to make sure that you can prove that each step is correct. And then finally, the fourth and final step, after you have actually implemented the problem solving plan, is to reflect. Very much important to look back and check. And there's a couple of things that you always need to do in this context. Does it make sense? Many learners, solve a problem and they get to an answer, but really that's where it stops. You have to, reflect on what was done. In the first instance, have to establish whether what you have produced and the result makes sense in the context of the given problem. And then, of course, the checking is important, and also to see maybe there's a different strategy. Maybe the problem can be solved in different ways, in a better way, and maybe an alternative approach, for example, and so on. And can I, and this is important with problem solving in general, can I use the result or the method for some other problem? In other words, is this part of a more general strategy that can be applied to different problems of this type? Right, so that's just by means of introduction to show how Geogebra Applet can be utilized using a phone. The final step, which I thought was very important and could be valuable for the participants, especially those who are teachers, they say that, education or teaching is definitely not a science, it's an art. And that means there are so many different approaches, and not necessarily a unique best approach. And the same is true with problem solving. For example, there are different ways, and how to teach it, of course, is also very much, in the hands of the particular teacher. And George Polya suggested in his book, some advice for teachers, which I found very, very important, very rich and very relevant. So these are a couple of things, just very quickly, to end off this particular facilitation of the applet. Some of his advice to teachers. Please, first of all, you must be interested in your subject. You must know the subject. And important, let the students learn guessing. Let the students learn proving. Know that the best way of learning anything is to discover it by yourself. And you have to, as a teacher, also attempt to read your students, try to see their expectations, their difficulties, give them not only information, but know-how, attitudes of mind, and a habit of methodical work. That's so important, especially when it's linked to problem solving. We have to be on the lookout for problem features that disclose a more general pattern that lies behind it. Mathematics always is embedded in broader general patterns, and it's important to see the specific case against the background of a more general result, which is much more valuable in the long term if that can be discovered through learning. Do not give away the whole secret at once. In other words, let students allow them to guess and to trial and error. By the way, George Polya is also not only the father of problem solving, but he's also the father of the so-called heuristic methodology. In other words, the trial and error, discovery learning methodology of trying to find the best solution. And also very important, he suggests to teachers not to force whatever is taught down the throats of students, but let them embrace that as well. I think this list of advice items is so important and generally applicable, particularly in the type of learners that we're dealing with in the 21st century that are really very eager and also to utilize with technology. I think I will stop right here with my facilitation of Polya's plan, 4-step plan, and you can at any time revisit this. This applet will be shared with you as well through hyperlink and QR code, and maybe share it also with some of the learners or students that you're dealing with. So at this stage, I'm going to go out of my applet, and to go out, you need to click on the bottom right-hand corner again with this little icon, and I will then, at this stage, just, do a new share or change back. to my previous PowerPoint presentation, and I will then also move back to the program. And that sort of concludes my first introductory session and a demonstration of how we can utilize these GeoGebra applets via QR code, specifically, or a hyperlink to facilitate, you know, a learning instrument. Could even be an item or a lesson, but particularly problems of mathematical problems. That will be very useful way to share and to interact with learners. At this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I will you know, move away and go to the second you know, session for this afternoon. As you can see it on the screen, take the opportunity, and it's quite an exciting opportunity for me to introduce our guest for this afternoon, which will do a presentation on 21st century pedagogy as the second part, or the second session in this webinar. Fatima Jakut is the founder and also, you know, the driving force behind the Saki Kamfa Foundation, very much into, you know, the 4IR approach and stream, that is science, technology, robotics, engineering, aeronautics, and mathematics. It's a little bit different than STEAM in general, but she has graciously agreed to take this second session. We also have a strategic partnership from the Govan Mbeki Master Development Center with Saki Kamfa in terms of you know, development and promoting, you know, STEM and STEAM education. So Fatima, I think over to you. And thank you very much for agreeing, and we're very looking forward to your presentation this afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Prof, and good afternoon to everyone. It's really a tough act to follow, to speak after you and present after you. So I see we're running a bit behind time, so I'll just say hello and goodbye. No, only joking. I think if you can just allow me to share my screen. I've covered quite a bit of the pedagogy that I'm going to talk about of the 21st century in your presentation now. So that ties really nicely into what you have presented. So without any further delays, let's quickly go to navigating. I don't know how many educators there are. If you are an educator, just give us a thumbs up or raise your hand, and to see how many educators we have. And I don't know how many people are already or in the teaching profession. So good afternoon again and welcome. I'll be talking about navigating your way through the 21st century, teaching pedagogy. And so teaching pedagogy is nothing new to anyone. It's if you are passionate, you will define it as the art and science of teaching. But I want to tell you what it is not. It's really not about using fancy equipment and technology equipment and uploading videos, uploading stuff on Google Drive or anything like that, or just assigning, if you're talking at school level or at university level, assigning assessments or online assessments to anyone or giving a link. It's nothing like that. It is actually how we transfer this knowledge in, and it's not new to the century. We've been transferring knowledge for millennia. So, but how do we transfer the knowledge from the new knowledge to the learner? So and how do we facilitate this process in the 21st century successfully so that our learner has a positive learning experience? And as you know, COVID has not done us any favors in one area, especially in the under-resourced schools and under-resourced households. But it's also accelerated for those who have the access to technology and so forth, and they are moving ahead. But so this afternoon, I would like to point out how do we become aware, and how do we cross that, or how do we cross the bridge basically to get to the other side? So we want to use, or how do we use the technology? Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the background noise. Somebody decided in the neighborhood to angle grind something. So so using the technology and the effective resources as an effective teaching strategy. Currently, what I see with COVID, especially under the under-resourced schools, there's no devices, there's no resources that can be used because of COVID. But that's not an excuse. We have to understand the rest of the world is going ahead. But why are we really talking about pedagogy? The question is, who are we currently teaching? We are teaching learners that will enter the workplace. And by the year 2030, most of them will be entering the workplace by the year 2030. So what kind of jobs will they be doing? What kind of skills do they require? So if you look at the World Economic Forum and what sort of skills we require, it's critical problem solving, creativity, collaboration, effective communication, innovation. All those skills need to be developed. And what sort of, as I talked about the type of careers, I was just explaining to a class 2 weeks ago, what sort of careers are they going to have in the next 10 years? If we're looking at by the year 2025, 80% of people will engage with some sort of automated device or technology in the workplace. And the ratio of human to machine by the year 2050, and they think that COVID has accelerated now, automation has become, the human machine ratio is going to be 1-to-1. So for every human, there's going to be a machine that's going to. So the human resource officer is no longer going to be a HR manager. It's going to be a human machine manager. That relationship needs to be managed. Quite interestingly, people don't really think about it. Okay, how are we going to manage machines in the workplace? The car manufacturing industry, vehicle manufacturing industry, has had robots for centuries. For decades, not centuries, in the last century, yes. And so has the aviation industry, where they build aircraft. I've been on the Boeing production line, and you only see the engineers, few and far in between. The rest of it is just robotic arms putting the aircraft together, quite interestingly. And our kids don't get to see that. So let us discuss now the strategies that we need to implement in the classroom, or at least at this stage be aware of it. It is, as a foundation, we are currently trying to implement, or we have an aggressive drive to implement new strategies, as we don't follow the curriculum. So we actually have our enrichment programs ensure that we include these strategies. So an inclusive teaching strategy where everybody is included and not the slow ones are left behind, and those who are interested is stimulated. So we have to find some way to stimulate everybody at the same level. Yes, the challenge is that our classes are big. I've just been to a school where the class size is 50 in COVID times. So it is very challenging for teachers at the moment. And we've had, before pre-COVID, we've had the biggest class that I've ever had to engage with was 69 kids. So yes, we do have major challenges in our education system, but that gives us an opportunity to see how can we improve and what do we need in order to solve these problems and to address these problems, and how do we change our teaching pedagogy. Maybe South Africa would come up with its own pedagogy because of our challenges. It's really an opportunity for us. So we must be able to implement technology and incorporate it in the delivery of the curriculum. As it is now, a lot of things have been removed from the curriculum, and we must be able to foster the student relationship. Also, another thing that is lacking at the moment. And we must be forward-thinking, solution-driven teaching, and adapt and embrace the change that we are faced with. And then the 4 C's that are critical to the teaching strategy is a teaching strategy that fosters creativity, allows critical thinking, and communication, and collaboration is also a very important factor. So collaboration in the workplace in the 21st century is an essential skill as well. So let me go through a couple of strategies where the first one would be crossover learning. And this is where it's the informal part of learning. So school clubs, robotics clubs that we see popping up at schools, and the Department of Science and Innovation is encouraging after-school activities that we make the textbook. All we want to see in all you will see in throughout this presentation is making that textbook come alive and making it, allowing it to make sense to our learner. Our learners. So the crossover learning experience exploits the strengths of both the environment. So for instance, kids go to the museum and they now learn about about the dinosaurs, and they can link this to contents that matter in their daily lives. We have a program that actually allows kids to find a solution in their environment. It's not curriculum based, but they learn new things about how do they solve a problem in their environment. My apologies, my doorbell is ringing, and then so. As I said, and then since the learning occurs, live, like in their environment, and drawing the experiences from multiple settings, the learners, creates an opportunity to support learners in recording their findings, in sharing their findings, and their diverse thinking gives them a platform for discussion, whether there is time or not. My apologies for that.
Fatima, about 1 more minute, thank you.
1 more minute. Oh my goodness. Okay, great. So learning through augmentation, I'll go through it. 1 more minute. Learning through augmentation, something that we've done through. We've just done. It's very difficult for kids to see how it is to fly, and these VR goggles allows them to put them in a space. Even learning to fly a drone. If they don't have the drone, they can actually have just their cell phone and an app, and they can go into this visual mode of learning the space, how to turn the drone, how to turn an aircraft even. So that's the other thing. And then incidental learning. What we've done is with a balloon launch is we've done a balloon launch about on Earth Day, which about a month ago. Unlike a structured unlike the structured type of learning where we have the curriculum, we launch the balloon. We allow them to find their own the problems that they want to solve, the investigation, and then analyze the data through their method that they choose. So I probably have 10 seconds left, eh?
No, if you can rush through quickly.
Okay, so I'm just quickly going to go through. This is the 4th one. And then context-based learning quickly is how they learn from experience by interpreting new information in a context when it occurs relating to what they do already know, and what they do already understand, and the relevance and the meaning of that. Especially in mathematics, they learn how to do graphs, and now they get the data from this balloon launch. The balloon went up so many feet, the temperature changes. How do they really interpret that data, and how do they put that into context? How do they read the graph then? That is that. So I'm going to go through computational thinking, and I just want to scan through the rest of it for you. And then learning by doing science. We all know this one. A lot of project-based learning happening currently. And then adaptive teaching. How do we adapt our teaching methods as educators? In our presentation, reading a room, reading the class, how much time do we spend on self-assessment scores and things like that. And then the analytics of emotion, very interesting technology that we have. They do this they're trying to do this with pilot training as well, or assessing pilots in their sleep, in their sleeping patterns, especially on flights. Can you believe it? They want to sleep on flights. So looking at their eye movement, their body language, reading that. And if we read that with children doing that type of automated methods, reading those, we can then adapt and see, oh, that is the kind of emotion that you evoke, or after 20 minutes, the body language changes and there's boredom sets in. So how do we then create a curriculum that stimulates each individual? So creating a curriculum that is adaptive to each individual. So then assessments is always important. We're going to end off of that. A stealth assessment it's a hard to measure aspect of learning, such as perseverance, creativity, and strategic thinking. It also collects information about the students' learning states, their processes, and without asking them to stop or take a break or take an exam. So I'm going to end off there. My 30 seconds is gone, and I hope I do have time for a question or two. Otherwise, you can just pop it in the chat and I can respond while the next presenter is presenting.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I didn't do justice to when I introduced her. We should have actually said much more. She's a highly qualified businesswoman, entrepreneur, and in fact, she's also an airline pilot, as you could probably read between the lines with what the things she's been speaking about. So it's really fantastic to have had you, and hopefully we can repeat this and even get some more value from your very insightful presentation on 21st century and 4IR. Fatima's organization, set up 4IR classrooms in different parts of the country, in different environments. So we wish her everything of the best, and hopefully we can build on our collaboration going forward. I don't know if there's any questions or so, but it has to be very quick. And then I would like to ask Karin maybe to introduce our next presenter.
Thank you very much, Fatima. This has been great. I think just to save some time, can I arrange that everybody pops their questions in the chat, and then we'll allow Fatima to answer it so that everybody can see it. So if you pop it, don't make it private message, say just to everybody, and then Fatima can answer. Thank you so much once again, Fatima, and sorry for cutting it short. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Phil Collett, and Phil is going to also introduce a little bit of a problem-solving method with regards to I think it's squares, but I'll leave Phil over. Phil is also one of our colleagues at the GMMDC, and I'm going to leave it over to Phil to introduce what he's going to talk about. Thank you very much, Phil.
Afternoon, colleagues. I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint, and from there we'll skip to an applet. Take a bit of time for everyone to scan that if they'd like to. So let's just get the share going.
Right, we can see it. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. Okay, I hope that is all clear. Just getting rid of the chat in the middle of my screen. If you'd like to do your part actively on your phone, there's the QR code. It should launch you right into this applet. Which is a practical demonstration of many of the principles that Prof. Van der Willevier went through so expertly of George Polya. So I'm going to be tackling this question about the comparison between a square and a circle, particular square and circle, and the relationship between the circumference and the perimeter. So just a few more seconds with the QR code up on the screen, and then I will move to the app. Right, there we have the app. I'm just going to scroll down as Prof showed you to see the full view and go to full screen. All right, so as Prof has demonstrated, there's a number of steps in problem solving, and this is a demonstration of those steps. And I hope you will see that going carefully through those steps puts learners in a position to planfully tackle a problem, and also puts them, I believe, in a mindset which is inquiring, and that is very important. I think one of the big challenges that we face in education is that we often are so busy teaching procedures and content that we forget that the real educative process is about asking questions and exploration, and eventually asking one's own questions and developing solutions to those. And that links to what Fatima said in the real world. So we should be mindful of that in mathematics as well, that we give those opportunities for problem solving, exploration, the asking of questions, the communication, all very important. So the first, let's try to understand this problem. Given a square, any square S, that's the name of the square, and a related circle C of radius R through two adjacent vertices of S and the midpoint, you already, I'm sure, are visualizing this square and circle, and the midpoint opposite of the opposite side of S, which of the perimeters is larger, square or circle? Now, quite difficult to guess, but guessing is part of the process. Which do you think? Maybe you can just jot that down. Is it the square or the circle which is larger? It's going to be difficult unless you can visualize this. So let's have a look. What have we done? We've read the question carefully. We're about to make a sketch. We're going to identify and label unknowns, and we're going to set some objectives or a strategy which might take us closer to the solution. So next step. Right.
Phil, we were only seeing your PowerPoint, I think, at this stage, not the applet.
Really?
If you just do a new share.
That's what I was talking blindly about. Let me state the problem again. Given any square S and related circle C of radius R through two adjacent vertices S and the midpoint of the opposite side of S, which of the perimeters is larger, the square or the circle? So if you read the question carefully, we're about to make a sketch. We are obviously going to identify and label unknowns and set some objective for and a strategy which will take us closer to the solution. Next step. Right, we're still at the understanding stage. The goal, we read the question carefully. So in order to compare, a ratio would be a suitable calculation to use. Circle of the circumference divided by the perimeter of the square. And if we can compare those two, it will give us an indication of which is greater. So the challenge is to find the connection between the side length of the square and the radius of the circle. Those are key variables which are relevant to measuring the circumference or determining the circumference and the perimeter. So we want the connection or the relationship between those variables. So let's go on. We've understood what the relationship, the spatial relationship between the circle and the square is through two vertices of the square and through the midpoint of the opposite side. There it is. Okay, we need a little bit more in connecting R to the side lengths, and so we need some diagram which gives us a chance of connecting the applicable variables. So here we have, remember, Prof said, is there some theorem which will help you to understand the crux of the problem? And I think we can immediately see that Pythagoras is going to be the theorem which will help us in this situation. So we've got the variables x, y, and r. There, one could just work with y, or the side length, and y being half the side length, and getting x immediately in terms of r and y. But let's go with x, y, and r in a right-angled triangle and see where that leads us. Now the connection. All right, so by Pythagoras, we have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And also by the construction of this figure, we can see that 2y, that's the side length of the square, is equal to x plus r. X plus r is that length, and obviously that is the side length, which is equal to 2y. So we can get x in terms of y and r and substitute that expression into the Pythagorean statement, and we will end up with an equation, as you see, 2y minus r squared plus y squared equals r squared. We expand, we eliminate r squared by subtracting from both sides, and then we're going to be left with a little bit more algebra with the relationship between y and r, and a nice, clean, perhaps unexpected relationship between y and r, that 5y is equal to 4r. Okay, so that's going to be significant in determining the perimeters and the circumference. So let's have a look at how that pans out. We want the comparison, so we set up the ratio, the circle circumference, obviously 2 pi r. The square perimeter is 8y. Remember that y is half the side length, so there we go. We now do the substitution. Recall that 4r is equal to 5y, and very neatly we can do a substitution here, eliminate y, and we have a numerical result which is very close to 1, but not equal to 1, and in fact less than 1. Something like 98%. The circle circumference is of the square perimeter. So the circle is smaller. The perimeter of the square is larger. So that process of visualizing, identifying variables, connecting them, and crystallizing the result using algebra is the core of a lot of mathematical problem solving in a formal sense. Let's go further, and we can, if we have construction like we may do in GeoGebra, we can actually go ahead and measure it practically in a particular instance, and we will see practically that the perimeter of the square is greater than the circumference of the circle. That's also important. Check the solution in a particular instance, a couple of particular instances, and see that, in fact, your conclusion is correct. Otherwise, you've got to go back to the drawing board. Right, so I'm going to stop the presentation and go back quickly to my PowerPoint. All right, so I want to ask now, I should have asked the question first. Now I'm being very didactic. But in the interest of time, what I should have said is, can you think of related questions, okay, related to this situation? So I thought, determine the length of the radius of the circle whose circumference is equal to the perimeter of the square of side length S. And another question, determine the length of the radius of the circle whose area is equal to the area of the square of side length S. Okay, so I redid the applet, and there's the result. The black circle is the one that the red circle is the one we've been dealing with. The black circle is this one here, and the green circle is this one here. And so for me, problem solving needs to end up with more questions and, the generation of interesting questions, learner involvement in wondering, well, what's next? How does this relate to other situations, similar cases, and application into the real world? So just finally want to say that we have a mathematics competition online every year. It's been running for years now. And a lot of questions are typically questions like these, where Polya's steps for problem solving are highly relevant. And those learners who are inducted into this way of thinking tend to be able to compete well in competitions. And those who haven't been given the opportunity to learn about problem solving will struggle with competition. So competitions are an important opportunity to put into practice these kinds of problem solving skills. So questions and learners asking questions, for me, educatively, is hugely important. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Phil. Now, without much more ado, I'm going to ask Arnold Kwazi to present our next presenter. I'm not going to waste some time. I'm going to allow him to introduce his topic himself. Please try, I'm just going to ask the rest of the speakers to try and please be brief. We don't want to keep everybody over time, but thank you very much, Arnold. Over to you. Great.
Hello, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are seeing my slide. I'm going to talk about a situation whereby we need to get out of the square in order to come up with our answer. We normally talk of getting out of the box, but this time we need to get out of the square in order to come up with our solution. What I have in front of me is my slide, and there is a QR code there, which I'm waiting for you to capture. And then there's also a link down there. If you are working on a laptop, then you may need that link. And then if you are on your phone, which we really encourage, since you are going to transfer that to the learners. Learners mostly have cell phones or smartphones. So if you have a smartphone, then please, using your QR code reader, please capture the QR code there, and then we go into this magical triangle on GeoGebra. Right, I hope we've captured it. And if you are on your laptop, probably you're capturing the link that is down there. I'm sure the links are going to be sent. They are going to be sent to you so that you can work on your own at your own time. Right, so now let me do a new share. Right, this is the problem that we have. And as Prof explained earlier on, you need to scroll down. And if you are on your phone, you need to scroll in this field next to GeoGebra. You scroll up and down. And after scrolling, you get down there, and then you get onto the right-hand side, the bottom corner. There's an icon that you need to click, and then you get into the presentation mode. Now we are in the presentation mode. We have the question, which goes triangle AEF with angle FAE, which is equal to 45 degrees, is inscribed in a square ABCD with side length L as indicated. Now the question, what is the relationship between angles alpha and beta? And then the second part, show that the circumference or perimeter of triangle EFC is always 2L. Right, the first thing that you want to identify is what is given. Is the language clear? Am I able to identify what I'm looking for? What are the unknowns? And if necessary, you may need to draw extra diagrams and introduce suitable notation, and then maybe you may need to work on a problem by parts. So now, the first thing that you want to see is that angle, we are told that it's triangle AEF. Where is A? A is here, E is here, and F is here. Then we have angle FAE, that is F down here, A, and then E. That is 45 degrees, yes. And then we are also given a square. This is the square ABCD. And then we are given a side length L, which is AB, which is equal to BC, equal to CD, and equal to DA. Now, the other thing that you want to avoid is to assume that this triangle is 45 degrees here. Maybe this angle is equal to this angle. You are not told that, so you don't assume. And to show that you are not supposed to assume, the good thing about applets is that you can play around with this and you can see that it's no longer an isosceles triangle. So do not assume. What you can tell is that surely the green triangle is a right angle triangle, the red triangle is a right angle triangle, as well as the blue triangle. So now, let's try to find out what the relationship what the relationship between alpha and beta is. Let's go to the first step on our slide down. Right. A creative way could be to rotate this particular triangle, ABE, 90 degrees clockwise. Now, when you are dealing with your learners, they need to talk about what does it mean to rotate? What is the meaning of rotation? What are the elements required for rotation to happen? And we are rotating triangle ABE. Which one is triangle ABE? ABE, okay. The green triangle through 90 degrees, okay? 90 degrees, maybe going up there or maybe going down there, and it says clockwise. Clockwise, then you relate your learners to tell them that these topics, they are not isolated. So clockwise means the way that the minute hand or the hour hand or the second hand of a clock moves or rotates. Through how many degrees? 90 degrees, which means that if your line was horizontal, it will end up vertical, this time going in the direction of the clock. Why? Why are we doing that? The idea is that we have a 45 degrees here, and we know that in a square, every angle is a right angle. So that means if one angle, which is part of a right angle, is 45 degrees, that means whatever remains adds up to 45 degrees as well. So if we rotate this green triangle, it means that we are going to create yet another blue triangle next to green triangle. And we know that the sum of the blue angle and the green angle is 45 degrees. Now that we have a 45 degrees and another 45 degrees, that becomes interesting. Why? Angle 1 and angle 2, as I said, is 45 degrees, because if you add the two angles, if you add the three angles, they're supposed to give you 90 degrees. Now, we are now going to move out of the square, just like that. We rotate. That is the meaning of rotation. That is the meaning of rotation. So we have rotated and we are now out there. What do we see? We said that this angle, the green angle inside the square, plus the blue angle, angle 1 plus angle 2 will give us 45 degrees. So in this case, we are also having 45 degrees. Now there is something that is interesting there. What is happening? There is some congruency that we might come up with. Let's find out. We have this side AE. When we rotate the green triangle ABE onto ADE accent, then we know that for congruence, side lengths are preserved. They do not change. So, which simply means that the side AE is actually the same as side AE accent. Side AE and AE accent are equal. Now, we have already established that the angle FAE accent is equal to angle 1 plus angle 2, which is 45 degrees. So we have two angles, that is 45 degrees, and the one that we were given, the 45 degrees, they are equal. So we've established that we have two corresponding sides that are equal, two corresponding angles, 45 degrees each, which are equal. And what about the third side, side AF? Side AF is common in the two triangles. Side AF is found in triangle AFE as well as AFE accent. So what do we have? We have a situation whereby by side, angle, side, we have the two triangles, triangle AFE being congruent to triangle AFE accent by side, angle, side. Now, which two triangles are we talking about to be clearer? Let me just highlight them. We have triangle AFE, which is orangish, and then triangle AFE accent, which is sort of like greenish, yellowish, right? So now, what does that mean? It means that the corresponding measurements in these, all the corresponding measurements in these two triangles are equal. Starting with this angle alpha is the same as alpha. And then from the green triangle, the original green triangle, we had beta, which was rotated to get out of the square and becomes beta out there. And this now is reflected onto the beta that is angle AEF. That now becomes beta. So now what do we have? We have 45 degrees up there. We have alpha there. We have beta in our triangle. What does that mean? 45 degrees.
Arnold, I'm going to just ask you to speed up a little bit, please.
Pardon?
Could you just, the time is running out. We are running out of time.
All right, I'll be done very soon. So we are saying that 45 degrees plus alpha plus beta is equal to 180 degrees, which is the sum of angles in a triangle, which gives us the relationship alpha is equal to 135 degrees minus beta. That is our first relationship. Then the second part says, what is the perimeter of the red triangle, the red right angle triangle? We need to establish values, unknowns x, that is the side BE, and then y, the side DF. Let me just reset this. DF is y, and then BE is equal to x. What does that mean? It simply means EC, which is the remaining part of the side of the square, is arrow minus x, and FC is also arrow minus y. Now, from remember, we rotated triangle ABE to triangle ADE accent. That means that this x, which is equal to BE, is equal to is the same as DE accent. So we have x there, and we have established y. We have indicated y as equal to DF. So if we look at the triangle AE accent F, we have x plus y, and we said that that triangle is congruent to the originally given triangle. That means we have the side FE being equal to x plus y, because it is the same, it is, since the two triangles are congruent, so side AX and F is equal to side FE. So that means FE is also x plus y. Now adding x plus y plus L minus x plus L minus y will always give us 2L. Now, as the speaker said, we must always leave a question for people to ponder. Will a similar result be possible if this given triangle, this 45 degrees, that is FAE, 45 degrees, is actually not 45 degrees? Are we going to have the same results? Are we going to have a relationship whereby alpha and beta will have the relationship that we got? And are we going to have the perimeter of triangle EFC being equal to 2L? That's the question for you. See you in the third webinar, which is coming soon. Thank you very much, Karin, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Arnold. That was great. Really enjoyed this, and I hope it stimulates everybody to further questions. Our final speaker for this afternoon, and we're now moving on to the science. Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Arnold, and thank you, Prof. Peter, over to you. Peter Weiswanger, who's also from the GMMDC.
Okay.
We look forward to the science. Thank you.
If you let me share. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A short little excursion into the world of science, and specifically grade 11 science today. Want to look at the following here. Let me put this on slideshow so you can see, maximize. Okay, there we are. We want to look at refraction, okay? In order to download the applet, the Geogebra Applets, you can use the QR code given there or the URL. I'll just give you a moment to download that if you want.
Just to point out that you're not downloading the applet, it's actually online. We're using it online as such, so you just get access to it, right?
Yeah, that's not the full Geogebra download. Okay, fine. I want to do a new share and go into the actual applet that I have. Here's the Geogebra Applet in full screen. I hope you can see it on your own screen, either mobile or laptop. Now, before you introduce a learner like to a Geogebra Applet like this, the ideal is that the learner experiences the physical science, the concept physically illustrated, rather than just as a theoretical idea on a blackboard or in a textbook. This is very easily done. All kitchen utensils, a little plastic tub, half filled with water, with just a drop of milk, just one drop of milk, and then a simple laser pointer can be bought in lots of little 15, 25 rand. And using that, you can demonstrate to learners how light is bent as it moves from one medium to another. Having illustrated the concept, you ask the learners then to explore this concept of refraction using this applet. On their cell phones, they can do that at home or in class, whatever time is available. You would give them 5 minutes just to play around with the app, to change things, to move the angle of incidence, to change the refractive index as they might want to, bring it all, make it equal, see what happens. Okay, now we have a straight line going through there. They can fiddle around with it and just see what it does. Then you provide them with an actual questionnaire with 5 or 6 questions that they must use in order to explore the concept using the applet. So the first question might be to say, well, identify the incoming ray, as you see there, the outgoing ray, that's here's the reflected ray, the reflection of there, and here the so-called refracted ray. Each has a little arrowhead there, so the 3 rays. That by having the learner explore this, discover this for themselves, the opportunity for concept formation and the details, naming, etc., that is involved with that. The second question would be, well, let's keep the refractive index here at the top medium equal to 1. And then in this medium below the boundary, we change it. So first we had 1 and it was a straight line, no curvature, an angle there, 49,5, angle of refraction here, 49,5. But now we change. And we'll see that as we change this refractive index, as this material becomes optically more dense, the angle of refraction changes, that the refracted ray bends towards the normal. You ask the learner to explore that as far as it will go, all the way up to 4.5, which is the highest refractive index, at least for natural materials. There are metamaterials that have a much higher refractive index, but that is of no concern to us here. The angle of incident and the angle of reflection, always the same, and the angle of refraction. A second question, or a third question might be, well, you know, what might the different colors of these rays represent? They won't have the correct answer for that the intensity of light decreases, etc. But that is part of the subsequent teaching. But it is an awareness, creating an awareness that here is something that is different from, you know, what it looks like in a black and white image in a textbook. The next thing would be, well, okay, boundary conditions. Let's make the angle of incidence 0. What happens? The line goes straight through. If you make the angle of incidence 90, well, we just follow the interface, the boundary between the 2 media. So the learner can play around with a number of different questions. Snell's law, for example, by using the values shown here on the applet, apply them in the Snell's law formula and see whether the formula holds true for all incidences. And then we go to a further phase. Now say, okay, let's bring this back to a refractive index of 1. And we change the refractive index for the medium at the top here. And strangely, now we notice that there is not a bending towards the normal, but rather away from the normal. And let's take it a step further. We increase the angle of incidence. Oops, and we've gone a little bit too far. We don't want to go that far, a little bit closer, bigger, one more, no. And we can then, okay, there we had it. So at this point, the incident ray is reflected totally from the boundary between the two media. The conditions, you ask the learner, what are the conditions under which this happens? Well, when the refractive index of the medium of the incoming light is higher than the refractive index of the medium after the boundary medium. So they can explore. Here we have a critical index of 50,28. Okay, it's 51,25. That's not exact. One can go there to the 10th decimal to get it exactly, but it is near enough. And then you ask them, okay, now look at different media and see what you can get here. And for the various media that you give them, say sugar solution versus flint glass, what are the various conditions? Will the light be refracted towards the normal, away from the normal? Will you, what is the actual critical angle? So using a very simple little app where they can change three things to get to grips with this concept of refraction by answering these questions. Then the last question always should be to say, well, okay, take a day and then reflect on what you have learned and see whether you can put your learning into one short paragraph, which you can give back to the teacher or to your fellow learners to try and explain to them what you discovered. By having to put it into writing, expressing the thoughts that they have and putting them down in words, the actual learning process, when they begin to clarify, well, was it exactly this or was it that? And the learning deepens. To go a step further, if we wanted to, let me, just go out of this and go into the next applet here. This, by the way, okay. Let me do a new share because to allow you to, there we have, oops, sorry. There's for refraction, the so-called L block. The QR code and the URL, if you would like to open that applet on your laptop and or mobile. This really is an application of the concept of refraction, where we will ask the learners various questions about to practically demonstrate using the applet various situations that I will explain now. So my actual applet, there we go, and enlarged. Okay, here we have, we can move this up and down. The point where the incident ray enters the L block, you can manipulate this carefully on the left-hand side here. The angle of incidence at the moment is 30 degrees as indicated there. Then you have two mediums, and the medium 1 has a refractive index of N1 there at the moment 1.31. And the medium of the actual L block is N2, and that is at the moment 2.11. And the challenge would be to actually apply what you have learned about refraction to this L block, and specifically to try to make this incoming ray reflect completely off all the boundaries that we have here. The 6 edges of the L block, can you make the ray be internally reflected, as for example there. Here we have, in these same conditions here, the ray that enters the L block is slightly refracted, refracted here again, enters the L block, and then is totally reflected. So we have total internal reflection on this boundary here. You ask the learner then just to jot down these two values plus the incident angle and this point here, what the value was, to be able to demonstrate that to you in class. And so you can ask them, well, okay, now explore all these other boundaries, see whether you can change that. So let's actually just do another one. Here we are, there's 2, and let's change this to a little bit up. There we go. So you see, here we have now on this edge, this total internal reflection. And total internal reflection occurs when the medium that it is coming from is denser than the medium it wants to enter. So as we've shown here, total internal reflection. It takes quite a bit of thinking, applying this very simple concept what one just learned about to try and hone this concept in a little bit more detail. But I'm going to leave it at that. So just to come back to my last thing here, and just to thank you for your participation here. From my side, stay healthy and success in your teaching, and make your teaching discovery, okay? And physical science particularly. Please, no merely theoretical teaching. I know sometimes when you teach about the speed of light, you can't but teach it theoretically. We don't have the equipment in school. But for the rest, there's so many things where kitchen science can be the answer to an amazing science experience where your science learner will ask, you know, what is he going to demonstrate to us tomorrow? If you can reach that stage, well, you know, your learners will hang on your every word. And isn't that every teacher's dream? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Peter. Prof, I don't know if you want like a final word. I just want to remind everybody to please click on the link to go to SurveyMonkey and please complete the survey. This helps us with the planning for the next seminar. Thank you. Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much, Corinne. And thank you, Peter, for excellent demonstration. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's late in the afternoon, so I really appreciate your participation and your willingness to listen and to also just experience this as a new type of pedagogy. And hopefully most of you were able to actually via your phones access these applets. And by the way, these applets are extremely low data. It's kilobytes versus data, megabytes. So it's very cost effective and very powerful and flexible, not only for demonstration, but also for problem solving, for setting challenges. So there's many pedagogical aspects that can be explored in this context, and be looking forward to get your feedback, to also engage you more, because this webinar at the moment, as it is just demonstrative. It's just an initial exposure, and hopefully this can grow much bigger. We have a Geogebra Institute that are linked to the Govan Mass Development Center, and through this particular GIP 4IR series and our PLN, the SACE accredited program, Professional Development Program for Teachers, and other activities of the center, we strongly promote Geogebra as integral part of and parcel of the teaching and learning of mathematics and physical sciences. So if you are interested to be part of our Geogebra Institute for the purpose of sharing materials or other follow-up workshops and other activities apart from the GIP 4IR, please, I'm just putting in the chat to everybody now, send Arnold indication, and we would then like to be in contact with you to make sure that you don't miss out of any opportunities. From my side, I would like to thank everybody. We'll be in touch again. about our third webinar, which will probably be somewhere in July, August, but we'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Prof. I think they're just messages of appreciation for this afternoon's session. I also just want to again ask everybody if you want to be part of the email or for the next seminars, please send an email to arnoldgwazi@mandela.ac.za for free membership of Geogebra Institute. Thank you very much.
Then I again thank everybody, and I wish you all the best with all the challenges. I know there are tremendous challenges, and I really appreciate your time during these COVID period that we live in to participate in this virtual platform. And this best wishes from the Governor Mbeki side and from all my colleagues who participated. Thank you very much.